In this video, I'm about to show you how Illinois is in a state of complete shock after another major corporate headquarters announced it's leaving for Texas and taking hundreds of jobs with it. Every time I think I've seen it all, another one packs up. And the worst part, the people in charge keep acting surprised. They keep saying, "We didn't see this coming," but everyone else saw it coming. The landlord saw it, the small business owners saw it, the workers saw it. The only people who didn't see it were the ones sitting in Springfield and the 5th floor of City Hall. This latest departure isn't just a headline. It's a gut punch to every family that depends on a paycheck, to every retiree who relies on a pension, to every taxpayer who's about to get hit with another hike. Let me break down what happened, which company left, why they really went to Texas, and what this means for your future. Let me start with the announcement that sent shockwaves through the state. Last month, a company called Treehouse Foods announced they are moving their corporate headquarters from Oak Brook, Illinois to Houston, Texas. Now, you might not know Treehouse Foods by name, but you know their products. They make private label packaged goods. That means they make the store brand cereals, the store brand cookies, the store brand pickles, all of it. They supply Walmart, Target, Kroger, and every major grocery chain in America. Treehouse Foods has over $3 billion in annual revenue. They employ over 10,000 people across North America. And they just told Illinois to take a hike. The announcement was quiet, a press release, a brief statement from the CEO, but the implications are enormous. Treehouse is moving about 200 corporate jobs from Oak Brook to Houston. 200 high-paying jobs in finance, marketing, supply chain, and human resources. Those jobs pay an average of $120,000 a year. That's $24 million in annual wages walking out the door. And with those wages go the spending at local restaurants, the property taxes on their homes, the donations to local charities. The official reason Treehouse gave was strategic realignment and proximity to key customers and supply chain partners. That's corporate speak for Texas is cheaper and friendlier to business. But the unofficial reason, the one they whispered to investors on the quarterly call, was simpler. The CEO, Steve Oakland, said that Texas offered a more predictable regulatory environment. That's a direct shot at Illinois. Predictable is the opposite of what Illinois has been. Every year, new taxes. Every year, new regulations. Every year, new headaches. The governor's office put out a statement saying they were disappointed, but that Treehouse's decision was based on factors outside the state's control. There it is again. Outside the state's control. It's never their fault. It's always someone else's. But the people of Illinois aren't buying it anymore. So why Texas? Why does every company seem to end up there? Let me give you the Texas pitch, because it's not complicated. Texas has no corporate income tax. None. Zero. Illinois has a flat corporate income tax of 9.5%. That's one of the highest in the nation. So right off the bat, moving to Texas saves a company like Treehouse millions of dollars a year. But it's not just taxes. Texas has the Texas Enterprise Fund, a pot of money that the governor can use to lure companies. For Treehouse, the state of Texas offered a package worth about $5 million in incentives. $5 million just to move. Illinois has similar programs, but they're smaller, slower, and harder to access. The Texas program is fast. You apply, you get an answer, you get the money. In Illinois, you apply, you wait, you fill out more forms, you wait some more, and then maybe you get something. Texas also has a tort reform law that caps lawsuit damages. Illinois has no such cap. So if a company gets sued in Illinois, they could be on the hook for millions. In Texas, there's a limit. That's a huge deal for companies in the food industry like Treehouse, where lawsuits over allergies, contamination, or labeling are common. The Texas cap reduces their risk. Illinois increases it. And then there's the attitude. The governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, literally has a team that calls CEOs and says, "What can we do to get you here?" The governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, has a team that calls CEOs and says, "What can we do to make you stay?" It's a defensive posture. Texas is on offense, and in business, offense wins. One thing that really gets me about these moves is the assumption that only rich executives leave. That's not true. When Treehouse moves to Houston, they're taking accountants, HR managers, supply chain coordinators, and marketing specialists. These are solid, middle-class jobs. The kind of jobs that let you buy a house in the suburbs, send your kids to college, and save for retirement. And they're gone. I talked to a woman named Diane. She worked at Treehouse for 12 years as a supply chain manager. She made $90,000 a year. Her husband is a teacher. Together, they were doing okay. Diane was offered a package to move to Houston. She said no because her elderly parents live in Illinois, so she's being laid off. 12 years of loyalty, and she's out. Diane told me, "I don't know what I'm going to do. There aren't a lot of supply chain jobs in the western suburbs anymore. I might have to commute to the city, or take a pay cut, or just move." Diane is 57 years old. She's too young to retire, but too old to start over. She's stuck. Diane's story is not unique. Every time a headquarters leaves, dozens of Dianes are left behind. They're the ones who show up to work one day and get handed a severance package. They're the ones who have to explain to their kids why they can't afford summer camp this year. They're the ones who lie awake at night wondering if they'll ever find another job. The politicians don't talk about them. They talk about corporate greed and economic trends. But Diane is not a trend. She's a person. And she's being crushed by policies that make Illinois uncompetitive. Let me give you a timeline of the headquarters we've lost just since 2020. It's a list of heartbreak. Boeing, 2022, moved to Virginia. Caterpillar, 2022, moved to Texas. Citadel, 2022, moved to Florida. Tyson Foods, 2023, moved to Arkansas. Archer Daniels Midland, 2023, moved its headquarters from Chicago to Decatur. That's not a loss for the state, but it's a loss for the city. And now Treehouse Foods, 2024, moving to Texas. According to the Illinois Policy Institute, Illinois has lost more Fortune 500 headquarters than any other state in the last decade. Any other state. We're number one at losing. That's not a record to be proud of. In 2010, Illinois had 37 Fortune 500 companies. Today, we have 31. That's a net loss of 6 of the biggest companies in America, and each loss represents hundreds, sometimes thousands, of jobs. The trend is accelerating, not slowing. In the last 2 years alone, we've lost 4 major headquarters. That's one every 6 months. At this rate, in 10 years, Illinois will have almost no major corporate presence left. Will be a state of small businesses and government workers. And small businesses and government workers can't support the pension system, the schools, the roads, and everything else we rely on. The governor says these losses are anomalies. Anomalies don't happen every 6 months. Anomalies don't become a pattern. The governor is in denial, and denial is the first stage of collapse. I have to talk about Mayor Brandon Johnson's reaction to this news, even though the headquarters was in Oak Brook, not Chicago, because the mayor can't help himself. He inserted himself into the story, giving a statement that read, "The loss of Treehouse Foods is a reminder that we need to invest in our people, not tax breaks for corporations." That's his answer. Invest in people, not tax breaks. But here's the problem. The people who worked at Treehouse didn't need investment. They needed jobs. And now those jobs are gone. The mayor's solution is to spend more money on social programs, which requires higher taxes, which makes Illinois even less competitive, which causes more companies to leave, which causes more job losses. It's a cycle that feeds itself, and the mayor seems incapable of seeing it. The governor was slightly more measured. He said, "We are working to create a business climate that works for everyone." But what does that mean? What specific policies is he proposing? He's not proposing tax cuts. He's not proposing deregulation. He's not proposing tort reform. He's proposing more spending on education, more spending on infrastructure, and more spending on social services, all of which requires more taxes. There's no plan to make Illinois competitive. There's just a plan to spend more money and hope things get better. I've been retired for 8 years. I've seen a lot of politicians come and go, but I've never seen a group so committed to doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. That's the definition of insanity, and Illinois is insane. Let me talk about Oak Brook. It's a nice suburb, upscale, lots of office parks. Treehouse was one of the anchors. They occupied an entire building. They had a cafeteria, a fitness center, a parking garage, and now that building is empty. The landlord, a company called Zeller Realty, is now stuck with 200,000 square feet of vacant office space. They're losing millions. They're going to have to lower their rents, which will lower their property taxes, which will hurt the local school district. But the real pain is felt by the small businesses near the treehouse building, the sandwich shop across the street, the dry cleaner down the block, the coffee shop in the same parking lot. All of them depended on treehouse workers for their lunch rush. Now that rush is gone. The owner of the sandwich shop, a man named Amir, told me, "I'm losing 40% of my business. I don't know if I can make it." Amir has been in Oak Brook for 15 years. He's a good guy. He sponsors the local soccer team, and he might go under because 200 people moved to Texas. The governor's office says they have programs to help small businesses affected by corporate departures, but those programs are underfunded and hard to access. Amir applied for a small business loan from the state. He's been waiting for 6 months. He's still waiting. Meanwhile, his savings are running out. That's the reality of Illinois. The government talks a good game, but when you need help, you get a voicemail and a form. Let me tell you about some of the brands that are still in Illinois. The list is getting shorter, but there are a few. One of them is McDonald's. I've mentioned them before. They're in Chicago. They're staying, but even McDonald's has reduced their office footprint. They're allowing more remote work. So while they're still here, they're not bringing the same economic activity. Another is United Airlines. They're still in the Willis Tower. They're not leaving, but they're also not expanding. They've shifted hundreds of jobs to Denver and Houston over the years. So they're shrinking their presence, even if they're keeping the headquarters. Then there's Walgreens. They're based in Deerfield. They're struggling financially. They've closed hundreds of stores. They've laid off thousands of workers, but they're still in Illinois. For now, the CEO has hinted that they're evaluating all options for their headquarters. That's code for "we might leave." If Walgreens leaves, that's another major blow. They employ over 4,000 people at their Deerfield campus. 4,000. That would be catastrophic. I also want to mention a smaller brand that's staying, Vienna Beef. They make the hot dogs. They're in Chicago. They've been there since 1893. They're not leaving because they can't. Their entire identity is Chicago. But even Vienna Beef is struggling. Their sales are down because tourism is down. They've had to lay off some staff. They're hoping for a rebound. But hope is not a strategy. Let me go back to the Treehouse CEO, Steve Oakland. In the investor call after the announcement, he said something very interesting. He said, "We looked at Illinois and Texas side by side, and the decision was clear. Texas wants us, Illinois tolerates us." That's a devastating quote. Texas wants us, Illinois tolerates us. Think about that. A CEO of a $3 billion company said that Illinois tolerates businesses. They don't welcome them, they don't recruit them, they tolerate them. As if businesses are a nuisance, a necessary evil. And that attitude permeates everything. The permitting process, the tax code, the regulatory environment. It all says, "You're lucky to be here, so shut up and pay." Compare that to Texas. The governor flies to Chicago to meet with CEOs. He sends them personal letters. He calls them on the phone. He makes them feel wanted. And when a company announces they're moving to Texas, the governor holds a press conference and praises them. In Illinois, when a company leaves, the governor blames them. That's the difference between a state that grows and a state that shrinks. I've run a small business. I know what it's like to feel unwanted. When you feel unwanted, you start looking for the exit. And that's what's happening in Illinois. Companies are looking for the exit because they don't feel valued. They feel like ATMs for a government that can't control its spending. Let me talk about your pension. If you're a retired state employee, a teacher, a firefighter, a police officer, you need to pay attention. The state's pension funds are already underfunded by over $130 billion. That's a hole so deep you can't see the bottom. Every time a company leaves, the tax base shrinks. When the tax base shrinks, the state has less money to put into the pension funds. When the state has less money, the funds get more underfunded. When the funds get more underfunded, they cut benefits or raise contributions. Either way, you lose. The Illinois Teachers Retirement System, the largest pension fund in the state, has already reduced cost of living adjustments for retirees. That means your pension check buys less every year. And it's going to get worse. The fund's own projections show that without major changes, it will run out of money by 2045. That's only 21 years from now. If you're 55 today, you'll be 76 in 2045. You might outlive your pension. I talked to a retired teacher named Carol. She taught third grade in the Chicago public schools for 35 years. She has a pension of about $45,000 a year. It's not a lot, but it's enough for her to live on. Carol told me, "I'm terrified. I read about these companies leaving, and I know what it means. It means less money for my pension. It means I might have to move in with my daughter. Carol's daughter lives in Florida, so Carol might end up in Florida too. Because Illinois can't keep its companies, and without companies, there's no money for pensions." Is there anything that could stop this exodus? Yes, but it would require a complete reversal of the state's political direction. It would require tax cuts, not tax hikes. It would require deregulation, not more rules. It would require tort reform, not more lawsuits. It would require a governor who says, "We want your business," not "We tolerate your business." But that's not going to happen. The current political leadership is committed to a high tax, high regulation, high spending model. They believe that the way to fix Illinois is to tax the rich and spend the money on social programs, and they're not going to change their minds no matter how many companies leave. They see the departures as evidence that the system is working, that the greedy corporations are being driven out. They don't see that those corporations take jobs, taxes, and hope with them. So what can you do? You can vote, you can support candidates who understand that a strong economy requires a welcoming business climate. You can write to your representatives and demand change. And you can prepare yourself for the possibility that Illinois might not recover in your lifetime. It's a grim thought, but it's realistic. The state is bleeding, and the people in charge are refusing to apply a tourniquet. Here's where we are. Illinois is in shock after Treehouse Foods left for Texas, but shock is not a strategy. Shock doesn't bring back jobs. Shock doesn't lower taxes. Shock doesn't fill empty office buildings. Only action does. And so far, there's been no action, just statements, just blame, just denial. The people of Illinois deserve better. They deserve leaders who understand that when a company leaves, it's not just a headline. It's a family that has to move. It's a small business that might close. It's a pension that gets a little closer to insolvency. They deserve leaders who will fight to keep jobs here, not accept them as lost causes. I'm not holding my breath. I've been disappointed too many times, but I'm still here. I'm still voting. I'm still speaking out, and I hope you are too. Because if we don't demand change, nothing will change. The companies will keep leaving, the jobs will keep disappearing, and Illinois will keep sinking. Stay smart, stay frugal, and I'll see you in the next one.